Charlie Decker is the main villain and main character of Stephen King's controversial novel Rage. But Charlie is actually so much scarier than you remember. So let's take a look as to why. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be talking about why Charlie Decker is the scariest book character that I've ever read, possibly ever. So, if you know me by now, if you've been watching me for a while, you will know that I have a sort of soft spot of affection for Stephen King's now non-existent novel called Rage. Not a lot of people do, and most of the people that did were crazy and decided to recreate it. But of course, I love Rage, and one of my favorite aspects about Rage is its main character slash villain, Charlie or Charles Everett Decker. So basically in this video, I just kind of want to go over what makes Charlie so scary, and kind of explain why he's so scary, and then by extension explain why Rage is such a scary book that scares me. Rage is the only book that ever scared me, even by Stephen King standards. It's the only one that's had me on edge. I thought I was going to have a nightmare when I first read it, but I never did. But anyway, so yeah, I just kind of want to explain why Charlie Decker and by extension Rage are some of the scariest things I've ever read in literature. But of course, there will be spoilers in this video, so you have been warned. So the first and foremost reason why Charlie Decker is so scary is he's a school shooter. I mean, there's no way around that. Literally, Rage is about him killing a teacher and then taking the class hostage to form some sort of Die Hard Meets Breakfast Club situation. Anyway, so Charlie very clearly has no morals at all. He just kills just because he's not understood or whatever, which is very psychopathic in case you can't tell. I mean, he doesn't kill a lot of people. He only kills 2 people in the entire book, which is surprisingly low for Stephen King. But I don't know, I think it's very effective. He kills his teacher and then another teacher that tries to get them out of the building. He shoots him in the neck, and then that guy dies, and then so the class is just left alone with Charlie. And I mean, of course, school shootings in themselves are incredibly horrifying. Here in Oklahoma, I just heard about one in Pauls Valley. Luckily, no one was killed. The principal was just incredible. But yeah, what I'm saying is that school shootings happen all the time, especially more nowadays than it did when Rage first came out in 1977. So Charlie Decker was very much ahead of his time in that regard, and unfortunately, his legacy is still around today in the form of school shootings. Reason number 2, Charlie has no regard for any authority whatsoever. So all throughout the book Rage, we see Charlie constantly tease, belittle, or just like even outright insult authority figures. In fact, the only 2 people that he killed in the entire book were 2 teachers, which have authority positions. But that's not it. The entire, inciting incident outside of the shooting part of Rage was when Charlie gets called into the principal's office because of a crime that we will specify in a different thing. But let's just say it also has to do something going against authority. But we will get to that in a different section. Anyway, so he goes to the principal's office. The principal tries to scold him and stuff, but he just mocks and belittles the principal. And so he gets expelled. And then so when he goes out of the office, he undoes his pants and his shirt and stuff. And he even tells the staff that the principal tried to rape him and to do something about it. So he is just full on lying about authority and stuff. And then later on in the book, he's messing around with police and the guidance counselor and the principal. And I don't remember if it's the guidance counselor or the principal, but he asks some very personal questions, like what their bedroom life is like. If you know what that means, you know what that means. He just has little to no regard of authority at all. And yeah, he's just a very bad person. He literally tried to blame the principal for rape at one point, and then he just constantly asks very personal questions and teases everyone and calls them by their first name and stuff, which isn't professional in a school setting. It's like he just does not care about authority at all, and he makes it very clear. And basically, he just gets rid of all the authority figures or mocks and belittles them to act like he's in charge, even though he doesn't really know what he's doing because he's just that insane. And basically, he's the one in charge here. Reason number 3, Charlie is violent. I mean, this one was kind of obvious considering he literally killed 2 teachers. But the incident that he got asked to the principal's office for was about a week or 2 before the actual events of the book happened. He got embarrassed by a teacher, but he had a pipe wrench, and so he clobbered the teacher over the head with the pipe wrench and nearly killed him. And so the teacher was like in the hospital and stuff. It was very grisly stuff. So, and then also earlier in the book, Charlie has a, I guess, fight with his father, which we will get more in detail with in a future section. But he used a belt on his father and he almost like killed his father. So yeah, Charlie is also very dangerous. He's very unpredictable. Reason number 4, I believe. Charlie is manipulative. So this was kind of obvious from other things I've said. He kind of gets the adults to tell him about some very deep and private lives that they don't want to share with students. But Charlie also basically, by the end of the book, he's convinced his entire classroom of hostages that they aren't even really hostages. In fact, he lets one like go out of the classroom and into the bathroom, and she comes back because, you know, he's got them wrapped around his finger, as they say. So basically, Charlie has just like got this classroom in a chokehold because he's just so sympathetic, I guess. And there's only one kid who doesn't fall for Charlie's stuff, and he's Ted Jones. And then, even then, Charlie's just very manipulative. He gets what he wants. He doesn't even make the hostages feel like hostages. They willingly stay and talk to him because he's got some interesting things to say and they want to know some stuff. He even gets them to share their own experiences about things. So, you know, that is just incredibly horrifying. If I were ever in a hostage situation, I hope it would not turn out like it did in Rage, because that is just absolutely terrifying. Reason number 5. Charlie uses his past as an excuse for his actions in Rage. So, throughout Rage, while Charlie is like bonding with his fellow classmates and stuff, we get quite a bit of insight into his backstory. His father was incredibly abusive. He would beat him. He would whip him with a belt. He would punish him in the most violent ways possible. Meanwhile, on the other side, his mother was very overprotective. She basically babied him his entire like adolescence. And so he grew up very sheltered, but also very emotionally damaged at the same time. And of course, that is a very bad mix. In fact, it got so bad that, like what I mentioned with the father's belt thing, shortly before the events of Rage, Charlie finally had enough of his father's stuff and then decided to go after his father with his father's own belt and nearly killed the guy. He does not, but basically he almost kills the guy just because he was done being abused. I mean, I can't say I blame him for wanting to get back, but almost killing the guy is a little extreme. So anyway, yeah, Charlie basically doesn't really have a reason for doing anything he does other than the fact that his childhood was a little rough. And I mean, I'm aware that like psychos have that excuse all the time. It's like so many people had that became like murderers later on and stuff. But Charlie doesn't use his past as a way to like, I need to get some therapy, I need to get some help. He uses it as a way to kind of explain why he does things, and that even gets further sympathy from his fellow classmates and stuff. So basically, on top of the manipulation, he uses a very emotional backstory that he carefully lays out, which I will also get to in a future section. But yeah, Charlie, he uses his past as a way to explain his actions, to kind of get off, is like, well, it wasn't my fault, I had a bad life. So yeah, I just find that very evil, and that is terrifying to me. Reason number 6. Charlie actually wins in the end. Now, I know this kind of seems weird considering he was arrested at the end and stuff, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. So as I mentioned, Charlie uses his emotionally laid out backstory very very carefully to kind of convince all his fellow classmates to sympathize with him and even share some of their own stuff. But the one kid, Ted Jones, who doesn't fall for his stuff, is kind of, he's harboring his own secrets, obviously, but he's not saying. But by the end of the book, after everything is said and done, Charlie finally gets Ted Jones, the one level-headed kid, to break. Ted admits that his mom has alcoholism and that he is caring for her due to her alcoholism. And that breaks Ted. And Ted basically represents society in this book, and Charlie is chaos. So when Charlie finally breaks Ted, Charlie breaks society. Society loses. Chaos reigns supreme. And so after that, Ted is kind of just, a little like crazy and stuff. And then to make matters even worse, the entire rest of the class, except for Charlie, who watches from the sidelines, he just watches them basically torture this poor kid into a near catatonic state. I mean, the kid doesn't move. He was probably going to run for like office or enlist in the army or something when he got older, but not anymore, because now he's just catatonic because of what Charlie did to these kids' heads, which is very terrifying. And then there was also a scene, I forgot to mention this earlier, but there was a scene earlier in the book, it was like chapter 20 or so, where Charlie had like two girls say mean stuff to each other and then just like slap each other, and then they would just like keep going. So basically force these people to say the worst things to each other and then physically have them like hurt each other. So yeah, that's another thing for manipulative, that's another thing for violent, that's another thing for him winning in the end. It's like Charlie is just the worst person ever. And so when he finally breaks society, that's how you know that Charlie officially wins. All right, another reason is that the entire book of Rage is written from Charlie's perspective. So Rage was the first book that Stephen King released not only under the Richard Bachman pseudonym, but it was also the first book he released under the first-person format. And so our main character, Charlie Decker, is telling the whole thing. He tells what leads up to this moment, the entire stuff. So really, for all we know, some of the stuff that Charlie said that happened didn't actually happen, because Charlie is what's known as an unreliable narrator. So basically, things could have actually gone a little differently, but Charlie, since he's writing his memoir in the mental asylum, because that's where he is by the end of Rage, his perspective is all we get. We don't get any other perspective chapters dedicated to other characters. It's just solely written from Charlie's perspective. So whatever Charlie says goes. It could be true, it could be not true, but it doesn't matter. What Charlie says goes. And so that's kind of like emotional blackmail, I guess, in a way. Or I guess not really emotional blackmail, but it really only gives us one side of the story that probably has a lot more different perspectives than you would think. Here we have the final reason. And this one is the scariest reason of them all. Charlie Decker is essentially a real person. Not physically, of course, he is a fictional character made by Stephen King named Charlie Decker, but I mean the point of like someone who is a school shooter and kills to get what they want and uses their emotional backstory to kind of manipulate others into doing what they want. In a sense, Charlie Decker is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Yes, he is a character specifically made for a book, but his impact, his mind, that's in a lot of people everywhere. It's like I mentioned earlier with the school shooting that recently happened in Oklahoma. In fact, Rage was pulled from print because a lot of people saw themselves in Charlie and committed violent crimes or school shootings like Charlie did in the book. So Charlie, his influence is out there. So he is essentially a real person. And another thing I want to mention is that Charlie is also a lot smarter than you think he would be, because it's mentioned early on that only he and Ted Jones passed the algebra test and no one else did. So he's like on equal footing with Ted. That's kind of unrelated. I should have put like a smart section there. But anyway, yeah, Charlie is essentially real. The cycle of violence, the like abuse as a child, the lashing back as a teenager and adult, the school shooting, the violence, the manipulation. It's like, it's all real. Charlie is real. And that, I think, is the scariest thing of all, is that no matter how hard we try, no matter how good security systems are, no matter how good mental health studies can become, Charlie Decker, or the physical manifestation of Charlie Decker, is always out there somewhere. And that is terrifying. But that is the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this little talking session about why I think Charlie Decker is a whole lot scarier than you might think. And this is actually a new idea that I had. I kind of want to start doing like video essays. I don't really know if this is considered a video essay, but I want to do more videos like that where it's like an opinion piece rather than a review. It's like I just want to like talk about why this book did this or why this character is that way or whatever, because I just love talking about books and their themes and their characters and stuff. So I definitely have a few more ideas as of right now, but I also do want you guys to give me suggestions, like for example, why Sam is the best character in Lord of the Rings, or like another video I'm planning, why The Catcher in the Rye will never get a movie, you know, stuff like that, stuff that I think you guys would want to watch. But anyway, yeah, please let me know your thoughts on Charlie Decker. Have you read Rage? Have you not read Rage? Did this video either convince you to read Rage or not read Rage? Did this kind of change your perspective on Charlie Decker and everything? Just let me know. Comment down below. I love reading all your comments, and I will respond to them. But, yeah, that is the end of the video. I've been Mr. BG. This has been BG's Books. And I will see you guys in the next video.